Okay, I will put myself as the main speaker for now. And just a second. Okay, hello and welcome to our 8th monthly Zoom meeting of Iconographers. This meeting will consist of 2 parts. Later, I will say congratulations to our students who have just accomplished our Ectemper course. We spent long months filming it, and those who studied also spent a long time accomplishing all the assignments. So we are happy with the results, we really are. I will talk on the knowledge and skills required in the course a little later, but first I wanted to discuss an image. And an image, just nothing really special. We came across some, social media recently, and I want to speak about it because it reminded me of the importance of training our eyes, keeping our eyes always open and alert. And I think it's not a secret that many people think iconography is a craft which mostly consists of your ability to reconstruct something, to bring back to life something which was damaged, which was produced a long time ago. So you're making it a game. You give a new life to the old thing. And it's such an activity where you technically may look at a photograph of something and then bring it back. So I will show you first a couple of other images just to enter this specific, topic. And like in this case, so you find somewhere a possibility to purchase an old car, which can be beautiful, and you purchase it and you put it on your trailer, you bring it home and you restore its original look. So it's something very common, especially probably for men, to spend free time bringing back the beauty which some time ago was originally beautiful. And with art, unfortunately, this doesn't work like that. Because if we are restorers, it's our job to reveal what is missing, carefully restructuring what's been damaged. But if we paint a new icon, we cannot just restore it from a book, from original. We are forced to make choices according to what our eyes tell us. I will make a simple example. You open social media, and here is this image I started talking about right before. So that was something Olga and myself, we thought can be called a wonderful example of ancient textile, and the flowers are beautiful. But we came across this thing because Olga subscribed to someone who makes reconstructions of the fabric designs. And here is the fabric design, which was made on the base of this one. So the thing is, it's a reconstruction. So he or she, the author, loved this pattern so much that just wanted to make the own version of it. But when you see this, you first can't believe it's anything to do with the original. Because now I will ask you to say some words as artists. What's the difference between these 2 versions? And why do you think there would be difference? Because it's about training our eye, it's about our ability to not judge, but rather analyze things, like grab certain qualities, say, I want this to be a different way because, or I want this equal because. So what's the difference? What's the main difference according to your opinions? Any thoughts?
The biggest the biggest difference is for me the colors, the very bright colors on the right side of the new thing, and the contrast between the blue and the white. On the left side is not the white, it's a ecru beige with a grayish blue. And on the right side is a bright white with a bright blue, and is a very, very hard contrast for me.
Well, I can suggest this version that the author of Reconstruction, though this is so much damaged, it's been like a couple of thousands of years, I probably should restore it in brighter colors, because originally it could have brighter colors. Yeah, it's a thinking process, I guess. That
Perhaps.
could be the reason.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts, Peter? Or
so you're making intelligent guesses as to what the colors used to be,
kind of.
Assume that it's not uncommon for red to fade faster than most other colors, so that the most
there is a
faded
little
bits.
piece of red, but yes, you're right. I agree with you. But we're not only
but also even in I mean, just going back to the lovely car that the MG that you showed, that was an MG TD, and the grille was not original. It was a fake grille.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Yes, but we're not talking just about the colors. Okay, the color was the first thing which captured your eyes, which caught your eyes, but anything else may be different.
It's the size of the design. I mean, clearly one of them is photographed up closer, so that the weave and weft is bigger, but and also it's a different weight of fabric. The new fabric looks lighter. The old one wouldn't fold like that.
And the structure is different from the fabric.
Yes.
Of the left side is a structure very not so clean. On the right side is very clean. The optic.
Okay, but I think I probably want your attention to be more in the direction, pointed in direction Peter began pointing out, with the size. Because as the artist, you are choosing the sizes of details, which are supposed to have certain rapport or connection with that. And the person who was choosing the size for the old one has decided to have a huge piece in the middle. Yeah, these flowers are really big compared to the teeny tiny little pieces around that. So it's like a huge jewel with little bijou, or I don't know, small precious stones around it, pearls. So comparison is that the one on the left had a serious intention to juxtapose what's important and what's the background thing, while the one who created the reconstruction had a thought like, okay, I have these hard form patterns to be repeated, I have this to be repeated, I repeat that. So this whole thing is transformed into rather decorative message instead of being a meaningful one. Am I clear in explaining myself? Because the one which gives more evident juxtaposition of different sizes scales has more dramatic and serious view and more dramatic and serious output compared to this one. Okay, well, let's move forward. And I wanted just to say that our choices are always conditioned by certain thinking process, because the one who did the fabric, the new fabric, wanted it to be more routine, more everyday and acceptable for any kind of garment, more universal probably, compared to the one which is on the left, which is more specific, majestic, solemn, and magnificent. So let's go back to iconography, and I want to connect this pattern with our profession and speak about the course. Yes, Peter?
And yes, I mean the old one is woven. Is the new one printed?
I do not know. I'm not sure.
Anyway,
about
I
that.
yeah.
It could be. Maybe because of also the production. If you are working so hard to produce something, you want it to be decent and strong. While printing is so easy for you that you don't think of it as a specific detail of your outlook to bring particular eminence to your, I don't know, garments or anything. That could probably be the reason. So at the course we have just done, not everybody of you has done it, but I will make a short, I don't know, review of what's been doing and a little bit of explanation why we did that, but what can be further steps for those who did that. And in iconography, we always think of painting faces. And we study different methods, even though, okay, this is not an icon, it's a mosaic, but I guess I should mention that from the very first centuries, we are speaking about iconography as demonstrating a human face with enlightened state of being, faces which radiate light. And icon painters, as well as mosaic masters, also try to achieve this effect. And one of the ways of methods to achieve the radiating face was to use very transparent paint, like here. On the scratches, on the areas where you see the color was damaged, you don't see any dark color behind. Underneath, it wasn't painted with sun here everywhere on the cheeks. So we see this luminosity of the layer, which has some transmission of light. Nothing which would be giving the feeling of heaviness of terrestrial skin or face in shadow. So this artist achieved luminosity with transparency. And we can say about the same using this icon from Svaneti, it's a region of Georgia, where the artist had some shadows, but the whole area of the face is light. So the transparency and lightness of the paint allow it to produce this impression, this feeling of luminosity. And this icon is unique because it's one of a kind, showing different shadow colors, different sun-killed colors on different faces. I will just show you now the image of Mother of God, and her face has a distinct green color in the shadows, while if you look at other images of Jesus and John the Baptist, you will see them having very different shadow color. So probably they were painted by a different master, but probably the same master just decided that he wanted to juxtapose these faces one to the other. And I'm sure this icon had some highlights, and probably it looked like this, because many of them had highlights damaged with time. So we see a lot of white or whitish paint added to the flesh tone of this icon. So we have a different type of luminosity with light shadows. Shadows are here, but they're still quite light. And I think we can say that the whole face is filled with the light. Not always paint faces with so much light. In some cases, we need to show how light is juxtaposed with shadow. Like in this image of Christ, his tomb, where the shadow has a very important meaning. Here we can say that light is struggling with the shadow. The artist makes the transition professionally, but this artist doesn't soften the transitions. We see the brush strokes as it's required by the message the artist wants to deliver. So it needs to be rough. It needs to be appealing. It cannot be delivered with perfect smoothness. And sometimes we even find icons with very little light on them. So the whole face and the area of the hair was covered with some paint, which produced rather feeling of darkness. It's very close to black, this color. And yet, from this black, there is a bit of light coming through, coming out of this face in a very particular way these artists wanted it to be. I can't guarantee this icon had no highlights, and I see now that he does have a bit of highlight on his face, and yet it never was so luminous as the ones we saw before. And here is another method. Luminosity is achieved by making very energetic and very contrast brush strokes, which illuminate the darkness of the shadows. I can say it increases the drama of the image and gives more energy to it. So we see brush stroke here, brush stroke there, bombing the surface, or like enlightening little flashes of this image, just little parts. And yet our feeling is that it has some luminosity in it. It's just such a hidden or mysterious luminosity because it's applied in such a way. So that's how it works. They always think of what's the best way to deliver the message and what's the best kind of highlighting and shadow color to be used for this particular image. And in this one, there is another alternative. And I would say it's very unusual, but yet, why not? Because in this case, the sun key or basic color is gray. I did my best to color render this image, and it really is gray the way you see it, because it's almost pure white, and you can easily distinguish whether it's some change towards yellow or something else. No, this is exactly as it was painted. It's grayish, and the skin tone is very light and pink, because I can say this artist wanted to connect it to the garment. So the pink on the lips and cheeks resembles the pink garment of Jesus and Apostle John. So another option, why not? There can be different alternatives, and always these alternatives are personal choices. Like in this case, I do this because I have a reason for that. In that case, I make my face much darker. Well, I could have enlightened this a little more, but yet you see the face is quite dark. So it mostly, sorry, too much, is dark. Somehow the artist wanted it to be. Probably I'm thinking that in many cases, when artists make their faces dark, it's to juxtapose this darkness to the gold. Like in this case, let's go back. Yes, here it is. So the luminosity and power of gold gives so much impression that in order to distinguish what's the other word, to give some distance between the gold and the face, the artist simply needs to have this darker background, darker feeling of the whole image. Otherwise, if the garment is light, if the gold is light, and the face is light, everything belongs to the same level of perception, of appreciation. So we don't distinguish what's more important. But in this case, our eyes immediately catch up the face as the most dark, and I would even say the most weird part. Yes, like what's such a dark spot over there? My eyes need to see, need to check out what's going on there. It's just our visual habit, and it's how things function. So many cases, I guess, that was the reason why they sometimes painted faces with luminosity, and sometimes they did them darker, just because they wanted a particular type of attention on them. I think this one is from Pskov or Novgorod, not sure yet. And at the end, we are coming to image by Andrei Rublev, which among all what you've seen is probably the most balanced, and it is beautiful, but it's not the only way to paint icons. So it is one of the options. And why I'm showing these options, because being introduced to different types of face construction, different color schemes for face painting, I guess our students may have a feeling that these are rules, we should follow them directly and have a good result, which you of course will, but it's only one of the options. So I'm showing this to say that you should be free in choosing your colors and tonal values to combine the colors and methods you have learned. Because at the course, we only used several colors to emphasize the role of the tonal value, to make clear, like, okay, here we studied this thing, other things are simplified. At this particular lesson, we studied that quality, that thing, other things are diminished to not distract our attention. But in real life, in your painting practice, you are welcome, you're invited to change colors, to mix them, to combine in any kind which will bring you a good and valuable result. So that was our motto, and that was our, that was the method we followed. Just to emphasize one thing, you have to reduce the attention given to other ones. That's why we only have given a limited number of very clear and concrete instructions. But in your real life, you're welcome to change. And these models are good and they work wonderfully for us, but we also need to choose correctly which one should be taken for this case or that case. Because it very much depends on your circumstances and your architecture. Like if you are somewhere in Georgia where you have lots of light and the building is filled with light, you should probably be using always something bright and very clear. In churches where everything is dark, you may have to be forced to use some contrasts, solutions, and other things like that. And here is Sue joining us at the very end. But sometimes, if you're not on outskirts of Tbilisi, you may have some very contemporary church, which will be having completely different look. And you are supposed to choose the iconography and the methods of face painting, which will be adjusted to the new space. So what kind of garment, what kind of highlight is good for this one? It's important to think. It's important to adjust this because completely contemporary interior will require you to find a completely contemporary solution. And that's an interesting question, how you solve it.